Trudeau now, get this, wants to get into the condo building business. All right, I'm going to call this one, You Will Own Nothing and You'll Be Happy. So front page of the National Post here, you have Trudeau with his hard hat and his hammer. He looks absolutely ridiculous. The guy's never been on a construction site in his life unless it was for a photo op here. But I almost spit my morning espresso out when I read this article. Apparently, Trudeau now, get this, wants to get into the condo building business, which the government does not have a good track record on this. This needs to be left to the experts, private developers. So if you've been following the Conservatives, Pierre Poilievre has talked a lot about selling off underutilized public land. He talks about the CBC building and defunding the CBC, but he wants to sell that all off to private developers. And it's a free market approach. Let's build, get shovels in the ground and build more housing. Get rid of all this government bureaucracy and red tape, and let's galvanize the free market enterprise system to build the tens and tens of thousands of homes that we need, millions of homes across Canada. And that's the right approach. Leave it to the experts. Private developers are the ones that are going to be able to build on the scale that's required here. But Trudeau and the Liberals have put their own spin on it now. He's saying you can't sell it off to the greedy private developers. You need the government to handle this. We're going to retain ownership of that land, and we're going to instead lease that to a developer. So it'll be like a leasehold project, and essentially you'll be renting now from the state. So my thoughts on leasing, first of all, I'm not a big proponent of leasehold properties. I can think a couple instances. There was one, the guy was very wealthy. He owned a telecommunications company in the US, and he wanted his son to go to UBC. And of course, everything around UBC is going to be leasehold. In that instance, I did sell him into a leasehold property because it wasn't a financial decision. It wasn't a financial investment. It was more of an investment in his son's education. So there are instances where I might be a proponent of leasehold, but it would be very rare. For the most part, I want you guys to own freehold because now you own the dirt, which is what really appreciates. You own the land. But this writer of this article in the National Post goes on to quote, and I quote, "When the state is your landlord," he says, "the feeling of powerlessness is palpable." And I completely agree with this. But of course, the Liberals and the NDP, that's what they want. They want you to be powerless because now you are dependent on them. You're dependent on big government handouts and welfare checks, even though it's your money to begin with. That's their whole end game here. But I understand what's happened here. You know, government at all levels now has basically waved the white flag on ownership. You know, it's not going to be affordable. People can't afford homes, especially in Vancouver and Toronto. So we're waving the white flag here, but at least maybe we can build some leasehold, some co-ops, some rental properties here. Affordable, somewhat affordable rental, although I will question how affordable these projects will end up being. You're probably still going to be paying $3,000 a month for a one-bedroom in a city like Vancouver. But anyways, I'm really a proponent of ownership. I think Canadians should own their homes, and I think that's what we should be striving for here. I don't think that, leasing from the government and having, a Miss David Eby as your landlord is really the direction we want to be moving in. It's not a good direction. So shifting gears here, I want to touch briefly on interest rates. So over 6 or 7 months ago, and you can go back and watch my video content at that time, I was telling you guys interest rates are way too high. They've risen far too sharply here, and you're going to have to see the government, the Tiff Macklem here, the Bank of Canada, cut the interest rates. And 6 or 7 months ago, 8 months ago, I was getting a lot of heat in the comments section. People were telling me, Jay, you're crazy. Inflation's too high. I think we peaked around 8% here on inflation. But I was saying, listen, that's coming down. And I was following at that time a number of economists, such as Royce Mendez. I was following David Rosenberg, who was saying, look, Canada's going to be heading into a recession here, and the Bank of Canada's hand is going to be forced. They're going to have to lower rates sooner than most people anticipate. Fast forward to right now, basically every leading mainstream economist is revising their forecasts, sharply revising their forecasts. And they're now talking about a 150 basis point cut by the summer of 2025. So that's significant. And I'm already seeing some fairly attractive mortgage rates here, fixed rates in the low to mid fours. We're not going to get back down to that emergency lows during COVID, but these are some fairly attractive interest rates in a historical perspective. And that's going to be coming down more. That's going to exert upward pressure on prices. There's no question about that. The statistics, of course, from the real estate board, those tend to lag, but I can tell you that in talking to my realtor colleagues here, just anecdotally, they're telling me that things are picking up. I know a lot of top 1% Medallion Club realtors, and they're all saying the same thing. This fall is going to be fairly robust, and I think it is going to get more competitive. And then I think probably by the spring of next year, I wouldn't be surprised to see a very competitive market, bidding wars across the board. So you've got maybe a bit of a buying window here, but I don't think it's going to last long. It typically never does in Vancouver. But to summarize, you will own nothing and be happy. More and more, I think we're going to be a nation of renters. Absolutely, for sure, in Vancouver and Toronto, more and more of us are going to be renting, leasehold, co-ops, that kind of thing. It's a terrible direction, to be honest, for us to be heading in as a country, but that is the way it is. And in fact, if you look at the rates of home ownership in Canada, they are actually quite high compared to our peers. So I expect those to decline over time. All right. I'm Jay Coupar. Feel free to comment below or subscribe. If you want a quick CMA on your property, you want to know what your home's worth, click that green icon. Usually I'll get that to you within about 48 hours. See you in the next video.